Google defines conspiracy theory as a belief that some covert but influential organization is responsible for a circumstance or event. I'm going to be picking on Colin Cowherd a little bit in this video, and in fairness, I should mention, he is far from the only person giving into this narrative, but he does it in a particular way that I really wanted to touch on because, quite frankly, I just hate when people come to conclusions the way that he comes to this conclusion. It's entire speculation and not using evidence or data to make a conclusion. And that's what really frustrates me. And so I kind of wanted to get into his segment, talk about what we're going to be talking about here, which is he believes that Tom Brady forced Bruce Arians into retirement. That is the belief. So let's get into it and talk about that.
So 3 strange things have happened recently. Tom Brady retired and unretired.
So this is where he is starting this off. Of 3 strange things happened. First, Tom Brady retired and unretired. Okay, got it. Yep, that's a strange thing. Let's let him continue.
Number 2, it's an offensive league. All quarterbacks want an offensive coach.
Right off the bat with number 2, I'm like, wait a second. I'm not sure if I fully buy into that. All quarterbacks want an offensive-minded coach. I mean, sure, you're going to want a good offensive mind in the building. I don't know if they have to be a head coach, though. They could be just an offensive coordinator. I don't know if that's the case, but again, perhaps it is.
The second strange thing, Byron Leftwich didn't get this job.
So, okay, Colin's second strange thing is a bit of a two-parter, right? Because it's coaches, it's 2 things that I'm not sure if I fully agree with the premise on. First part is that all quarterbacks want an offensive-minded head coach, and number 2, that they gave it to Todd Bowles when they didn't give it to Byron Leftwich. Why not give it to Byron Leftwich? Wouldn't it make more sense to give it to Leftwich? To me, no. I think that even if Brady wanted Leftwich, I think that there's still a chance Bowles gets the job. He's someone who has done a lot of really good stuff with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and was considered one of the main reasons they won the Super Bowl. So 2 premises I already don't entirely agree with, but I will still acknowledge they are possible.
Third strange thing, Bruce Arians went upstairs. Bruce Arians about 2 things: football, coaching, and cocktails. He's not an upstairs guy. Those guys work hard. It's no fun. Bruce, a fun guy.
Again, not sure how much I fully agree with that premise. To me, this feels very much like hey, you can still be in the building and kind of do some things here. We want you in the building, but you don't have to work that many hours. I made the comparison on my initial video of something like, I think that this could be just the equivalent of when someone retires and gets into bagging groceries. It's an excuse to leave the house 2 days a week and kind of, gets you feeling like you're still doing stuff, gets you still interacting with people, but you're also not working that many hours. But, okay, those are Colin's 3 strange things. So, what to make of those? These are them on the screen. Just to reiterate, Brady retired and unretired. All quarterbacks want an offensive-minded head coach. Why not Leftwich getting hired by the Buccaneers? And finally, BA's new job. Those are the 3 things, and Colin has a possible explanation.
All 3 are very explainable. Why did Tom retire and unretire? Because he never wanted to retire.
So yeah, that's his explanation for these 3 things, which is Brady never wanted to retire, which, by the way, this is not an explanation for all 3 of these things. It is an explanation for the first one, potentially. It's a possible explanation. I'll certainly give him that. But the next 2, why it's Todd Bowles as the head coach and not Leftwich, well, that's not an explanation that Brady never wanted to retire. Because if he was trying to get what he wanted, wouldn't then, by that logic, Byron Leftwich be the new head coach? I also don't think this explanation has any impact on number 3, the third strange thing. In fact, maybe you could argue that if he did in fact want Arians out of the building, why even give him that job in the first place? Although I guess maybe the flip side is maybe what they're saying is, hey, they're going to give him a bunch of money to basically not have to work, and that's why Arians agreed to this. That's the only way I can think about it. But more important than any of that stuff I just mentioned, all we're doing is guessing right here. We don't have evidence to support one or the other. We're just throwing darts at a dartboard and hoping we land on a bullseye. Okay, I guess that's not a great analogy, but you get my point of this is just speculation, and I'm speculating back with Colin. Neither one of us have evidence to support our theories, so he could be right or I could be right. We don't know, and that's exactly why I don't like these kinds of arguments. Now, there is a little bit of evidence Colin gives, so that's good.
A couple of weeks ago, there was that Rich Orenborg story who used to, he knows people inside the rooms in the NFL, and he's like, Arians would come in. This was a few months ago, and, Leftwich and Brady would be working on the game plan, and Arians would come in there and red marker it and say, no, and it was driving him crazy, and everybody denied it immediately.
I think my favorite part about that is and everyone denied it immediately at the end, because that kind of proves my point, right? Why are we trusting one guy's statement so much more heavily over everyone else's statement? I mean, this is not just Tom Brady and Bruce Arians denied it, but also all of the reporters that work for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or work around the Tampa Bay Buccaneers also denied it and said it didn't happen. So why are we taking one guy who may have connections his word over guys who we know do have connections his word? It feels like you're believing what you want to believe a little bit, because that helps push the conspiracy theory and push the more interesting story. And this is kind of my issue with conspiracy theories in general, is it feels like the information you want to believe, you weigh more heavily, and that's how you can push that narrative. Again, both are possible solutions, but to suggest that one is the case and one isn't just because that feels more right to you, that's just not good journalism.
Matt Stafford got his way. Russell Wilson, get me out of here, got his way. Deshaun Watson with 22 civil cases got his way. Tom Brady got his way. Last year, Dak got his way.
Again, that's kind of making my argument a little bit. What do all of those people other than Brady have in common? People knew that they were trying to get something accomplished. That's one of the things about conspiracy theories, right? That's something that constantly gets said, is if you have this conspiracy theory, the issue is that typically a lot of people have to know about it. There'd be a lot of people in the organization that would know about this, and it seems like things do get leaked. You would expect something to get leaked by a reputable source instead of by these kind of lesser sources. I've yet to see someone who I really trust say that there was any rift between Brady and Arians.
Bruce doesn't look bad. He got his money. He's a good guy. He absolutely has been so pro Todd Bowles. It meant a lot to Bruce Arians to get Todd that job, and he was also going to get Byron Leftwich a job. But Tommy, once Leftwich and Brady really started working well together, it makes Arians a little more disposable.
All right, so two things to talk about here. First, I'm not sure if he caught it, but talking about how Bruce Arians really wanted Todd Bowles to do well. Well, maybe that's why he retired, right? That seems like a totally plausible explanation that makes probably more sense than what you're putting out there. But okay, even that aside, this second part is also kind of another one of those, where are you getting this from? What evidence do you have to support that Brady and Leftwich have this great connection with each other? I mean, Brady has said positive things about Leftwich, but he said positive things about Arians, right? Where do we have this definitive evidence that Brady loves Leftwich and hates Arians? I just don't know.
He didn't get a total say until after the bye a couple years ago. Then he said, no, it's my offense. They hummed and won the Super Bowl.
Again, there's just no evidence to support that. In fact, the most I've heard about it, listen, I watch a lot of Buccaneers stuff because I am a Buccaneers fan. I remember LaShawn McCoy talked about how they were actually telling Brady to try and take more of a leadership role and kind of in more of an X's and O's role, but that's not really his style. He's much more of a let the coaches do it. And it wasn't until the bye week, according to McCoy, that Brady finally said, okay, I'll take more of a role. That's, again, who knows? That's one person's word, but at least that's someone who is in the building who is saying that. I don't know if that's true. It's possible Brady wanted Arians gone. Like, that's a totally legitimate possibility. I'm not here to sit here and say that there's no chance that happened. But given the information we have, I'm always kind of a believer of typically the correct answer is the most boring one. Typically, what people are telling us is the way they actually feel. Not always. There obviously are some exceptions. Maybe you feel this is one of them, but I don't see evidence to support that you could feel that this is definitely one of those situations. I went out and asked on my Twitter account, @JacksonKruger, if you want to follow me there. I simply just talked about, I just threw out the question, so you can, talk to me there if you want to, if you have a follow-up, if, for something that you feel. But I simply just asked the question of, if you do believe that Brady sort of forced Arians out and made Arians retire, or said he wouldn't come back unless Arians retired, because that is the implication from all of this, what evidence do you have to support that theory? and there really isn't that much. The most that, the best that people said was, I heard there is some rumblings that they didn't like each other. I don't know if that's true or not, but I can see it. In that case, I think that's possible. Like, I can see that as well. It's not out of the question, but there's so much jumping to conclusions here, and I think it's kind of a great example of, I feel like too many people today will simply jump to one conclusion when there isn't enough evidence to support it, just because that's fun. That's why, I don't like conspiracy theories in general. I think conspiracy theories are dumb. I think this is a conspiracy theory because there isn't enough evidence to support it, and you're basically saying the people that are saying a certain thing aren't actually doing that thing. Bruce Arians has retired before. I think that he was on his way out and felt like this was a good time to retire. He didn't want to leave the organization in shambles, because I know that is something that people sometimes worry about when they retire, is they don't want to just sort of leave everything in shambles. Some guys don't mind it, but some guys don't want that to happen. So Bruce Arians, to me, that seems like the most logical outcome, is just what's actually happening. But that's what I think. What do you guys think of all of this? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.